As well as the standard fair use policy, this video is protected under the Treaty of Peace and Friendship 1787.
Moors are awake. We are taking our place on this planet.
Islam Moors.
My nationality is Moorish.
Mr. Wilson? You're on mute, sir. Hit the microphone.
I'm sorry, sir, but since you're technically challenged, we're going to have to issue a warrant for your arrest.
Hit the microphone. There you go.
Who am I speaking with?
This is the clerk. How are you this morning?
I'm fine.
I'm going to place you in a breakout room to speak with the attorneys that we have for you this morning, okay?
Okay. Ms. Reporter, I'm sorry if I don't know your name. If it's okay with you, at your convenience, can you turn that O into an I? I'm Quentin with all I's. I prefer to go by Quentin Martez, but if you need that last name up there, then that's fine too. But definitely, matter of fact, no worries.
Okay, I put your name as it appears on the docket, so we'll stick with that.
If I have to be that Quentin, then okay. Fine.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I beg your pardon.
Nope, that's okay. That's okay. Leave it as it is. I don't need to be a burden.
Good morning, Your Honor. It's Officer Presley. Did Quentin Wilson check in?
Oh, he did check in, and he's representing himself. So I'm trying to get through all the other folks before I start that case, please.
Okay. No, sorry about that.
Second, no, you good. So he wants to represent himself for the trial. So just give us a second.
All right.
Okay.
The judge already knows that this guy representing himself is going to be a train wreck. So it was a good idea that she scheduled him to the end of the docket.
In the matter of the people versus, let's see, Quentin Martez Wilson. This is ticket SP 13020081. One count license improper. Also calling tickets number SP 13636761. This is one count drove while license suspended. Appearances for the record, starting with the city attorney, please.
For the record, Your Honor, Chiku Mason, City Attorney, 43471.
All right. And Mr. Wilson, can you state your name for the record?
Quentin Martez, in propria persona.
Okay, so we know the only sovereign citizens that represent themselves in propria persona are of the Moorish persuasion. So this guy is clearly a Moorish sovereign citizen, but he also forgot that it's not just propria persona, it's propria persona sui juris. Keep studying, guy.
All right, sir, and let me get a couple of questions over to you before we start. Sir, can you please raise your right hand? Mr. Wilson, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, even though your hand wasn't up, and I could see that.
Your Honor, as a preliminary matter, it indicates that Mr. Wilson has paid $120 on the defective lights. Is that proceeding or?
No, he's paid on that, so we won't be doing that ticket.
Okay.
But I have to ask him some questions about him wanting to represent himself, because this is a. All right, sir, you know you have the absolute right to have counsel. You understand that, correct?
I do.
And the reason why you have the absolute right to have counsel is because there are fines that equal $500 or possible jail time that can be received. And so there's this constitutional right that kicks in to allow you to talk to someone who is trained in the law to be able to give you advice. You understand that, sir?
For the most part, that I can receive counsel if I need them to.
Okay.
I think that's
And that's
quite
the
good.
reason why. It's because there's a right and there's the possibility that you could receive jail time in these particular matters. And so when those constitutional rights come where we are able to take away your liberties or your freedom, it is afforded to you that you are to either have counsel provided of your own or the court will provide you with counsel. You understand that, sir?
I do.
Okay. You also have the right to have a jury trial. That's 6 citizens. It's a misdemeanor. So the up to maximum for these, I believe, is 90 days on these particular matters. But you have the right to have a jury trial because of the fact that these are misdemeanors. That's 6 citizens instead of the traditional 12 for criminal matters or for civil matters will come in. They're all citizens of the city of Detroit who will be able to do that. That right kicks in. You understand that, sir?
Is that clear to pretty much a formal hearing? Yes.
No, it's not a formal hearing because they will actually follow the same law I'll follow today as it being a bench trial. It's just citizens from the city of Detroit who will stand to give the decision as opposed to me giving the decision. So you understand that, sir?
I do.
Okay. And with all that information given to you, you still would like to represent yourself at this point in time. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, there's no injured party involved and there's no criminal activity. So
Okay.
And there was no corpus delicti, and let me guess, you weren't driving, you were traveling, yada, yada, yada.
Go for it.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So how it starts is that counsel for the city will proceed. She will question the witnesses, and then I'll give you the opportunity to do what's called cross-examination. And then counsel for the city can follow up with questions after that. And then you will be able to give closing arguments. Well, do you have an opening statement at this point in time, counsel for the city?
Yes, Your Honor, for the city indicating that we do have the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant's license was suspended at the time that he was pulled over by police officer Presley on June 14, 2022 at 9:54 p.m. in the city of Detroit, Michigan. We'll prove that he did not have a license, he was driving a motor vehicle, and he was driving a motor vehicle on the highway, Your Honor.
All right. Any opening statement for you, Mr. Wilson?
Besides the objection of a few comments that he made for us.
Okay. Those are questions that you can ask him. I was going to say opening statements typically give me a guideline or a roadmap to what.
Well, I apologize. Well, I pretty much motion for dismissal with prejudice for failure to state a cause of action.
Okay.
Which can be
That motion
can be granted.
Okay.
Excuse me.
It's okay. That motion is denied. So we're going to proceed at this point in time. Okay. All right, counsel, who are you calling first?
At this time, I'm going to call Officer Presley to the stand, Your Honor.
Right. Officer Presley, Kyle Presley. Sir, can you
Good
please
morning,
raise
Your Honor.
can you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, Officer Presley, badge 973.
All right. Your hand is raised for me. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you can put your hand down. You may proceed, counsel.
Good morning. Would you please state your full name for the record as you previously did?
Yes, first name is Kyle, K-Y-L-E. Last name is Presley, P-R-E-S-L-E-Y.
And where are you currently employed?
City of Detroit Police Officer.
And what is your present rank?
Police officer.
And on June 14, 2022, at about 9:54, were you a police officer at that time for the city of Detroit?
I was.
How long have you been a police officer for the city of Detroit?
Just over 5 years.
And would you please describe to the court the kind of training you've had regarding traffic enforcement?
I've been through multiple accident classes that equaled 160 hours. I've had training or traffic stop training in the academy. And I've had legal courses as well.
And on the date of the in question and regarding the ticket regarding the defendant's ticket, on June 14th, 2022 at 9:54, did you have an opportunity to, or did you stop the defendant?
I did.
And what was the reason for you stopping the defendant in the first place?
It was dark out and he had no lights on the rear of his vehicle, no tail lights on.
And what did you do?
I initiated a traffic stop at that point when I observed the vehicle with no lights on.
And tell me, what is it that you normally do before we go into detail as far as initiating a traffic stop? What is the procedure?
As far as what?
As far as what would be the next step? You stop a car, and what would you do after stopping the car regarding a traffic stop?
I would go talk to the driver and identify the driver, give him the reason for the stop, and then I would go back to my vehicle for the investigation part.
And in the investigation part, does that result in doing a law enforcement identification network check, lien check?
Yes, yes it is.
And what is the purpose of a lien check?
To see if a vehicle has valid license plates, insurance, and to see if the driver has a valid driver's license.
Does the lien check also provide you with a photo identification of the defendant or the individual?
It does.
And in this case, on June 14th, 2022, did you give the defendant a ticket?
I did.
And what was the reason for giving the defendant a ticket?
There's two citations. One was for the no lights on the vehicle, and the second citation was for the driving while license suspended.
Did you inform the defendant why he was getting a ticket?
Yes, I did.
And do you see the defendant in the courtroom today or on the screen today?
Yes, I do.
And for the record, Your Honor, Officer Presley has identified the defendant for the court today.
Okay. Did he tell me where he was? Does he see him?
Do you see the defendant here in the court today on the screen?
He's on the screen. He's wearing a white long sleeve shirt. He's got glasses on.
And let the record reflect, Your Honor, that the Officer Presley has identified the defendant at this time.
All right, so the record will reflect. You may continue. Thank you, counsel.
This is the same person that you gave a ticket to, is that correct?
That's correct.
Based upon your investigation, did you discover that the defendant did not have a appropriate driver's license?
Correct, and that was per the Secretary of State.
I'm sorry, I didn't get, repeat?
That was per the Secretary of State.
Thank you.
Was there anyone else in the vehicle with the defendant?
Not that I can recall.
After you gave him the ticket, after you gave the defendant the ticket, what did you proceed to do?
Told him I didn't really do anything. I told him he was free to leave and contact the court if he had any questions.
Were you alone, or did you have a partner with you at the time?
I was alone.
And for the record, Your Honor, pursuant to MCL 257.201A, the court can take notice of the defendant's Michigan driving license record, which has been provided by the court clerk, who has the authority through the Secretary of State to provide this as a certified document for the court to indicate that the defendant's license was not valid today, nor at the time of the traffic stop.
All right. This point in time, for the records, counsel has handed me the lien SOS, Secretary of State's lien run on the license. And I will, do you want me to admit it as evidence?
Yes, Your Honor, there is no objection.
Any objection from you, Mr. Wilson?
Just about the record.
Yes, this is just about the record being admitted from the Secretary of State's office. It's what we call a document or business document that has been received by the court because it was run from my court clerk who has authority through the way of the Secretary of State's office.
I also have submitted documents for the clerk there at 36. Am I able to submit my documents as well for the record?
Did you send it to me? Yeah. Did you send it already?
Yes.
Okay, when it gets to your case, you'll be able to present that evidence to me as well, okay? Right now, we're just talking about this lien that's being admitted. I was giving you the option to tell me whether or not typically you object, you stipulate, and I make the final decision on that point in time.
Well, Your Honor, since this man is clueless and he just has no idea what's going on, I'll make the objection for him. I object to the document being submitted to the court because this man does not need a driver's license to travel. So you guys submitting his driver's record is irrelevant. He's a traveler, ma'am.
I believe that I don't have any objections if I'm able to make sure that my paperwork is submitted.
At this time, the court finding that this is a valid business record being admitted into the court, I'm going to accept this as People's Proposed Exhibit or People's Exhibit number 1. You may proceed, counsel. Thank you.
At this time, Your Honor, I have no further questions of Officer Presley.
All right. Thank you, Officer Presley. Now, Mr. Wilson.
Yes, ma'am.
This is cross-examination. You may proceed.
Officer, well, excuse me. The day, I would like to go to the day of that, the day of that happening. You said it was 9:54 p.m.
Yes, that was the time the citation was issued.
Okay. What was the conversation like before you received any information as far as ID or driver's record or driver's license?
I advised you why I was stopping the vehicle, asked for your identification, and then I went back to my vehicle.
Was at that point in time, before you pulling me over, was any traffic hindered of lights being off, or was any traffic just off from not having those lights on at the time?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I'm not quite understanding your question.
Did the lights off cause any injury to anybody that was traveling rather north or back and forth from where you pulled me over? Where you pulled over the vehicle?
Aha, I see what he's doing. He's going with the no injured party line of defense.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Okay. Was there any do you remember any talk as far as any God-given right to travel even without having a license? Did any conversation about that come about?
It may have, but I don't recall any exact conversation.
Okay. Was there any problem besides the lights for the pullover? Was there anything else reckless or anything else out of the ordinary just besides the defective equipment?
Nope. This trial is for the purpose of did the defendant have his license at the time? Was he a licensed driver?
Do you have any response, Mr. Wilson? There's been an objection.
I have an objection for the terminology of driver is
Hold on, it's one objection at a time, Mr. Wilson. So how it works is someone makes an objection and then you respond to it. I'll make a ruling. And then if you have some type of objection, but typically that happens when you're on the not.
Okay.
Well, you can make an objection if you like.
For the record, within responding to that, let it be known on record that I'm a common law unfranchised free man.
Okay.
Meaning that I operate at the general laws of the Constitution that govern these United States.
Okay. All right. So you don't. So her question was, and I don't want to misstate it. Do you remember what your objection was, counsel? If not, I'll try and paraphrase it as best as possible.
Yes, Your Honor. My objection was that he's going outside the bounds and the scope of the issue in this trial.
Okay. So
I'm sorry.
Willfully
I'm
no.
sorry. Hold on one second. Outside the bounds and scope of what?
Of this trial. Of this trial.
Thank you. Got it.
all right. All right. So I'm gonna give you a little lateral. I'm gonna overrule you, counsel, but I'm gonna give you a little lateral. What that means is that we're arguing today the defective lights, although you can address that because that was the original ticket, you did pay for that. So that was like admitting responsibility for that particular ticket. It's been taken care of, but you can't go too far out the bounds of the questions. They can be about the license and the driving and the traveling, traversing. It can be about that, but it has to stick with the ability to have a license and drive on the roads in the state of Michigan, city of Detroit. Okay, Mr. Wilson?
Oh, I'm a little confused.
No shit.
Oh. Hello?
Okay. I'm here. We're listening.
I apologize.
It's okay. What's the confusion, sir?
I believe my confusion comes from the jurisdiction of the state and the license.
Okay. So you have more of a motion that you want to make in mid-trial. Did you have any more questions for Mr. Wilson?
I mean,
does it sound like you?
No,
Officer Wilson? Okay. Any redirect? It's okay. It's okay, Mr. Wilson. We're going to guide you through this. Any redirect, Attorney Mason?
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right. All right, Mr. Presley, not Mr. Wilson. Mr. Presley, you are Officer Presley. You are, if there's no further questions, may this officer be released at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Officer Presley, you are all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a good one.
You too. Be careful.
Thank
all
you.
right. Argument from the people on this particular matter?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe that the people have met their burden beyond a reasonable doubt. As you know, reasonable doubt is based on common and reasonable sense arising out of some or all of the evidence that is presented. I believe that we have shown, Your Honor, that the driving a motor vehicle on the highway, driving means having actual physical control of the vehicle. I believe Officer Presley testified that he pulled him over driving his vehicle. He was operating on the highway, Your Honor, and that his license was suspended or revoked, did not have a valid license as indicated by his Michigan driving record. I believe, Your Honor, that we have met the elements, we have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that defendant was in violation of the law.
All right. All right. And your closing argument, attorney, Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Your Honor, for just allowing me to speak and work with me through the flow of trying to find a resolution to this matter. Again, if I may speak briefly, I have a conscious thought that I have a right to travel at the pursuant to Shapiro versus Thompson, which is a traveling right. And also that
The citation on that, and I'm sorry, I should have allowed you to present your case in chief. I apologize for doing that out of order. So, counsel, if there's no objection, Attorney Mason, I'm going to let him present his case in chief, which this appears to be.
Yes, I have no objection.
Okay, thank you. All right, you said, what was the case? Do you have the citation?
yes, Shapiro versus, Shapiro versus Thompson, and part of my briefness on it.
You know what I mean by citation? Like, what are the numbers after it? So you're quoting a case, and there's so many cases throughout all the world.
I apologize, Your Honor, for not being right and exact with you. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I just want to be right and exact with you. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
It is yikes. Forgive me again. I don't have that site case right now, and I apologize about that.
Well, what does that case say? Because I don't know what it says, so it's going to be hard for me to evaluate based on what it says. But
I'll take it from that a right so elementary conceived from the beginning to be necessary commitment of the stronger union the Constitution created. In any event, the freedom to travel throughout the United States has long been recognized as a basic right under the Constitution.
all right. So back then, when this was written, were there vehicles, Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
What type of vehicles? Because you don't have a citation, so I don't know when this case was. And when you start talking about the Constitution, that's back in 1700s, right? Well, 1800s, because so they had horse and buggy and carriage, right?
So, yeah, even today, horses are still considered a form of.
In the city of Detroit, how many
Yes.
horses if they not on the mountain unit?
Your Honor, I see where you're going with this, and it's clear that you're trying to educate this ignorant man, but you asked him the wrong question. The question you should have asked is, were you pulled over on a horse? And the answer would be no. He was in a motor vehicle. So the horse and carriage, the horse and buggy, all of that is irrelevant.
Okay.
Okay, continue on though. I'm gonna let you make your argument. I want to hear all of it. And if you have documents you need to forward to the court, I'll give you an email address for that, okay?
Okay. And thank you again for bearing with me, Your Honor.
No problem.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Excuse me. The state of Michigan converted my right to travel into a privilege. which was decided that a secure liberty cannot be turned into a privilege. And if it is, Shuttlesworth versus Alabama, and I'm sorry for not giving you the cite cases on that, which I have. Excuse me. Let me go back so I can be clear again. Oh, okay. Excuse me. Oh yeah, I already told you. Shuttlesworth versus Alabama is U.S. is US 373. I apologize again, people, for my time. Is 373 1962. If the state does convert my right into a privilege and issues a license and a fee for it, I can ignore the license and engage in the right with impunity. And of course, Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham, Alabama was a civil rights case that the late great Martin Luther King had went through, and walking through the first steps in empowering Black people and so forth, for that matter, especially when we were going through the segregation era. So even with me citing my cases, I didn't have a willful intent on breaking any laws, and I should have just started from that humbly and allowing this court to know that even through my guided self, I just turned 40, and I've been traveling with a license throughout my adulthood, and even coming to an adult today. I'm a firm believer of understanding, knowing how to travel and be gracious within the laws that ordain it too. And within these periods of not having a license or a license suspended, it would be totally nice, more than nice, excuse my wordplay, it would be gracious upon me, the people, more so me being a defendant within this court, and saying that it would be great if we can just have some understanding of precise knowing of if the person needs a citation or not. Even with me said not having a license that day, I'm quite sure the record reflects of me having a license within just the realm of it. And that's really just of knowing if somebody is really out here not obeying the law as far as having a license, and somebody who is taking care of their license who might be in a position of transitioning over. And for the record, again, even with me being a firm believer of the constitutional laws and still studying, obviously, on how to correspond with the state and having a license, so to speak, even though it's already written to be that it's okay if you don't have one, as long as you are obeying the regulations. And again, from what we went over in this case today, defective equipment is not criminal. I think it would have just been okay for the officer or for the agent, just hoping that he would be a peace officer, to allow me to simply adjust my lights if that was just the only problem for from him recognizing or pulling me over, and us just fixing it about, let alone just bringing it to the court, because this is little, and I know that you have more important stuff to do than hear guys even defend themselves for just traveling back and forth. But in this day and time, you have to say something. as a citizen that's willing to take responsibility for his God-given right and for the responsibility of being cordial with the laws that obtain the state and the city. And I appreciate your time again for allowing me to talk and express my my true intent of being here in self-representation in court today, Your Honor. I thank everybody for listening, and I apologize for my overtime.
That was one of the worst line of defenses I have ever heard. This man is clearly going to lose this case.
It's okay, Mr. Wilson. You didn't have any response, did you?
Just, Your Honor, that, driving is a privilege. It is not a right.
Speak up.
Driving is a privilege. It is not a right. Take a test to make sure that we know the rules of the road. And that's what the license entails. Taking a test to know the rules of the road. He didn't do that. In fact, Your Honor, it's citing of cases in which he talks about the Constitution. The Supreme Court has used the rational basis test to determine the rationality of the laws and the fact that they are needed to protect the community and to protect the society. So the court says you have a right, that there has to be rationally related to the protection of our society. And that's the reason why we have these laws in place, to protect our society so that they know taking a written exam and a driver's exam to make sure they know all the rules of the road and not going by just what they feel is the right and the appropriate rules of the road. And regarding his defective life, you've already made that admission based upon the payment of that ticket. You've paid that, so you have admitted liability, defendant has admitted liability by making that payment. That's about it, Your Honor. That's all I would say.
Okay. All right. On this particular ticket that is before the court, this is the operating Officer Presley was driving while license suspended ticket. It was testimony that was taken from Officer Kyle Presley that back on the date of June 14th of 2022, he was acting as a police officer in the city of Detroit, had been a police officer for 5 years. He had taken over 160 hours worth of training, that he did see a vehicle driving on the road. And they did not have their lights on. He proceeded to make a traffic stop upon approaching the driver. He asked for identification, ran a lien check, and saw his purpose for running the lien check is to check whether or not the plates are valid, whether or not the license is valid. Within the lien system, there is a photo ID of the person whose identification has been given to the officer so that he can check it. And it did come back as being that of Mr. Quentin Martez Wilson in that particular matter. At that point in time, he was issued, the officer Presley did identify him on the screen as well. He identified him as not having a valid license at that point in time. Counsel also for the city did admit a documentation into the record, the Secretary of State lien that was produced by my clerk, Mary Edwards, as someone who is able to be a valid record holder of the Secretary of State, which states that his license is not valid as of today. And looking through the lien on that date, it was not valid as well. It says that it was suspended on that date as well. So with that being said, counsel for himself, representing himself, Mr. Wilson made an argument about his ability and right to travel. He did cite 2 cases. The court did have the opportunity to look at one of those cases. I'll render my decision, then I'll address you, Mr. Wilson. So at this point in time, he did not have a valid license to drive on the city, so the court is going to find that he is guilty of, one second. All right. I find that he did not fail. He failed to display a valid operator's license at that point in time. Mr. Wilson, there is something that I want to say. Now, the fact that you had a license at one point in time lets me know that you were trying to follow the wills and rights of the city. And I don't know what happened, but someone may have told you, or you may have thought, or whatever happened, you believe that you do not have to have a valid license because you can travel, traverse, move, go along the city streets. You said it yourself during your argument to me that it's a privilege, and you may believe that this privilege is something that cannot be taken away. But as we elevate and continue to progress with our society, we continue to make rules. That's why the Constitution has its basis and foundation with some fundamental rights, but that's why states and the government are allowed to make additional rights to govern us as we become a larger and bigger society. The case that you cited out of Alabama, I don't know if you read it in its entirety, but it addresses the fact that people were being penalized because they were going to do sit-ins and sit-downs. And so they were saying people couldn't travel from different areas to come and protect constitutional rights, to be able to, or to try and force and press the issue of people being able to eat who weren't of, because the wording in this particular one says Negro. So that's how long ago it was. So they were trying to penalize them and criminalize them for trespassing and traveling from different areas to protest and to do the sit-ins and the sit-downs. So that's why they created these things, to try and say, no, we can travel to these areas to try and address these injustices that are being formed. I would ask you, and I can only ask you, to consider stepping back and looking at why it's important for people to have valid licenses to drive within the state of Michigan, especially the city of Detroit. These rules are meant to protect society and help us govern it in some type of way. And once again, as you stated, you had a license at some point in time, and that you were able to get that and to have it and to be a part, and it got suspended a while ago. So it hasn't been valid, it looks like, for a while. But I would encourage you to definitely, when you travel on the roads in the city of Detroit, we now have jurisdiction because there are rules that you must have a license to drive on the city streets in the city of Detroit, in the state of Michigan, with a valid license. Otherwise, there is a ticket that will be issued. Now, and one of the other concerns is that you talked about the lights not affecting. Well, we don't want anything bad to happen, though. And we are so grateful that no one crashed into you, but I've been behind somebody before when they don't have their lights on, and it can be a scary situation. So although nothing happened, we got to make sure we turn it on. I know you were just using that as an example to show why you believe that you could have been just told to turn your lights on. But at that point in time, as they stop to make sure, they're going to make sure everything else is okay too. And so they're going to run your license and make sure you're good and you're ready to go. It is a citation that they can give in the city of Detroit for not having your lights on your vehicle. And then when they run it and find out that you don't have a license, then you can't drive on the city roads. So it's the order of this court that you be found guilty of failing to display a valid operator's license not found on person in this particular matter. I do know that you have another case. Are we moving forward on that case as well?
Your Honor, that was very well said. But I'm sure all of that flew right over this man's head. And quite frankly, the only reason he's using these sovereign citizen arguments is because he knows that his license is suspended. He doesn't want to take the proper steps to get his license back on track. So you definitely should penalize him to the furthest extent of the law.
Do we need to, city of Detroit? Yeah, it's Officer Presley is here as well. Oh, I'm sorry. Officer Kirsten is here as well. You have it in that file.
I appreciate the wise words, Your Honor, and again, thank you for recognizing that. Just again, from being an upright citizen and understanding that there are equal laws of protection out here, and I'm still not sure about the light situation, again, from being off or being on, but his reason for doing it obviously brung up some questions. Some concerns about my license, and I more than believe that the records that you guys had showed that I think I had received that maybe just days later, and from what the from prosecution was talking about, just saying that assuming that I had willful intent to disobey any law about it. Again, the SOS never shows more information within the citizens' ability to travel upon the roads back and forth, even just with days off from not having a license or having a license. And again, the state, well, not the state, but the Secretary of State can only go so far within the contract of allowing allowing a state to know whether if the citizen is okay to drive, even with a license being, again, within a certain region of possession. Again, there was no injured parties. Because I drive willingly, knowing to not injure anybody, regardless if it was my life's work.
And Mr. Wilson, I'm not saying the fact that you are willing. I want you to stop thinking about like the constitutional backing of it. I want you to think about logically why a state would want you to. And we're going to end this now because I got one more case after you. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I want you to think about, because you seem very reasonable. I want you to sit back and in your own personal time, think about why this particular thing has been put into place. And don't get bogged down with the whole cost of stuff, because it costs $19, I think, to renew your license after you get it. So we're not talking about a huge expense, and you don't have to pay it every year. It's just when it comes up for renewal, right? But think about why we would want people who maybe aren't as conscious as you to go through the process of having a valid license to be on these streets. Because I don't know if you have loved ones, but I do. And I don't want somebody who just going to decide that they know how to driving around my loved ones or myself in a particular matter. And not just because you have it, now you're a great driver, because that's not the case either, right? But why as citizens, why as a country, why as a city will we find it necessary to now try and hopefully regulate just a little bit people's actions and behaviors on the road, especially when we have so many people. Detroit isn't at 1 million now, but imagine when we were at 1 million and people trying to get in and out and go here and there and do all the things that they need to do in these heavy vehicles, right? Because just think about it, okay, Mr. Wilson? You have another trial, but I think the people have a motion at this time. Maybe not.
Yes, Your Honor, I want you to dismiss the other ticket.
All right.
I believe that ticket is SP 13020081. Drive while license not valid or improper. I think it's duplicate of the charge.
All right. And Sergeant Carrison is present online. I don't know if you can hear us. You sign back on and sign back off. I'm hoping that you were privy to the trial, so you got to hear it and you understand, Sergeant.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So at this time, the other case is dismissed. It's the order of the court, Mr. Wilson. Typically, I charge $200 for my fine. I want you to consider, though, getting your license back.
I believe once this case is adjourned, this was the only case that's really holding that up for me. I've had a license since this case has even been in the system, and it's a year now, so I'm just waiting on for clearance of this, and I'll be okay.
Okay. Does he have reinstatement fees to pay on this, Miss Mary? Can you tell me? Oh yeah, can you see? I'm sorry. Here it is. Because he paid that defective lights ticket, right? If it's reinstatement fees, I'm gonna have you pay the reinstatement fees. I'm gonna have you come back. And how long will it take you to reinstate your license? And as long as you have your license state, I won't give an additional fine.
about if a month is okay with you, Your Honor, then
I'll give you a little bit more. I'll give you until the new year. I know the holiday season is coming up. I don't know if you celebrate or not, but let me see. Okay. So the order of this court is I want you to get your license back because it sounds like you're willing. I wouldn't do it unless you were willing, but it sounds like you're willing to get your license back. I'm going to give you until January 3rd to get your license back. If you come back on January 3rd and your license is valid, I'm not going to charge any fines on this particular matter, okay?
I truly appreciate it, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Okay, you made a valid effort, okay? I do, and I'm listening to you. I hear you. That's why I was willing to explain things to you.
I apologize for the stagnation before.
It's all right. It's all right. Okay?
Thank you.
So I'm going to give you until, and come back on, I said January. Let me make sure.
I'm on January 3rd was, I believe, is what you said.
I did say January 3rd. So go figure out how to get it back in order. January 3rd for your review. If you have your license back in order, I'm going to waive the fine, okay?
May I come before the date or just present it before? Is that okay with you?
Because
I'm just asking in general.
Let's go for January 3rd. If you do, you can call the court and I can see if I can get you in, but let's do it at January 3rd for right now at 8:45 a.m., okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right, if there's nothing further, that concludes this trial. Thank you all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Have a great
welcome.
day and have a great holiday,
too.
everybody.
Thank you. Same to you.
Apologies again for the long win.
You're all right, Mr. Wilson. You actually better than some folks. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right. All right, Sergeant Harrison, please be safe out there for me.